Okay, so that's the recording started, and just I will also be doing a transcription as well, so there will be a script that can be read of the session too. Let me just close all this down, and I will start the presentation. Okay, so let me. Is there any way I can get rid of you?
Sure. Just leave. I've got the grass to cut.
I don't mean like that. Just like, I want to just make sure that the presentation is the whole of the screen, and no, I can't work out how to do that. Annotated. It's not obvious how I can do that. Let me hang on.
In your change option, you know the three dots. Your options. There's one there for full screen.
Yeah, I've just done full screen.
Okay.
But I've still got you in a big tile.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
I think that's that tile.
Okay, there we are. That's it. I think we've got you there now. So just me in the top right hand corner, I think, is where we're at. Okay, right, lovely. So the idea behind this particular session, I'm going to do a couple of these before the exam in November. I know a lot of people are gearing up to take that exam in November. Just to let you know, the next exam opportunity will be in February. Following that, I think there'll be one in May as well, just to help you prepare and work out and plan, I suppose, where you might want to do the exam. Russell, I know you're aiming for November, however. So the deadline for that is the 7th of October. So just let me know by then if you're definitely up for the exam. And of course, I'll send out various communications between now and then anyway, just to get a confirmation. So the idea behind this particular session was to have a closer look at one of the resources that I've provided, which is called the Theory Toolkit, which everyone now has in their online classroom. Okay, so every level 3 candidate, be it wines or spirits, this presentation is aimed at both wines and spirits candidates. You have a resource called the Theory Toolkit, and in there I am going to dump a load of information that will hopefully set you up for success in the theory part of the examination. You'll know by now, I think, that the WSET level 3 exams, be it wines or spirits, have 2 parts to them. The first part is the theory exam, and the theory exam is made up of multiple choice questions, 50 of them. Whether you're doing wines or spirits, it's 50 multiple choice questions. That is then followed by short answer questions. The short answer questions are slightly different whether you're doing wines or spirits. Wine candidates, you have 4 short answer questions, each of them worth 25 marks. Spirits candidates, slightly different. You have 10 short answer questions. 6 of them are worth 5 marks. 3 of them are worth 10 marks. And there'll be one big one in there that's worth 20 marks. Okay, so slightly different layout for the spirits candidates. The second part of the examination is a tasting paper. Okay, the tasting paper for both wines or spirits is 2 samples that you will have to taste blind. Write your tasting note according to the systematic approach to tasting. You have 2 hours to complete the theory paper. You have half an hour to complete the tasting paper. So that's 2.5 hours altogether in order to complete the examination. Okay, if you pass the theory but not the tasting paper, you will only have to resit the tasting paper. You have got the theory in the bag. You will just have to resit the tasting, and vice versa. If you pass the tasting but not the theory, you've got the tasting paper in the bag. All you'll have to resit is that theory paper. Okay, so just a bit of an explanation about the exam if you're not already aware. Okay. In order to achieve a pass, you have to get 55% in both papers. That's 55% in the theory and 55% in the tasting. And the multiple choice questions and the short answer questions are weighted equally as well. So that's 55% in the multiple choice paper and 55% in the short answer questions in order to achieve a pass in that whole paper. Okay. 65% in order to achieve a merit, and a distinction 85%. Okay. Any questions so far?
No.
No. Okay, good. Right. Okay. So I wanted to briefly recap the resources that you all have available to you. The most important resource, and hopefully you've read this by now, most of you have been registered on the course for long enough to have been through this document already. The most important, let me let Claire in. Okay. Hi, Claire, are you there?
Yes.
Hi, Claire. Nice. Well done. Thank you for joining us.
Hiya.
All right. Okay. I'm already a couple of slides in, but I am recording this, so you'll be able to catch up on that later. And feel free to jump in if you have any questions at any time.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, cool. That Russell's in the meeting as well. Russell's doing spirits. Claire's just signed up to do wine, Russell, just in case you're interested. So, okay. So, right, resources, specification. This is the most important document after the textbook. Okay, so the specification is essential reading. I would highly recommend that all of you review your specification document and pay specific attention to the learning outcomes. The learning outcomes, only got one major learning outcomes for the tasting, but please do review them because it details what the explanation.
You're just really starting to break
Okay,
up very
go for it,
badly
Russell.
there. It was okay. Sorry, Claire, until Claire joined, but it's starting to kind of break up a bit. I'm not sure what's happened there.
Okay. Okay, all right,
Okay.
we'll keep an eye on it. You can hear me okay
Yes,
for the
that's
time
better.
being? Okay, all right, okay. The specification, pay particular attention to the learning outcomes because this details the examinable material. The textbook is crammed full of really cool stuff, loads of information, all of the knowledge that you need in order to be successful. However, it's also got more in it than you absolutely need to know to pass the exam. So always check back to the specification to make sure you're covering the information that you absolutely have to know. And to be honest with you, I highly recommend using those learning outcomes as a checklist, particularly pre-exam in the run-up to whilst you're doing your revision in the run-up to the exam, because it will really help you understand what you already need to know and perhaps what you don't know and what you need to focus your efforts on. So the way I always used it, certainly for when I was doing my level 3 spirits, which I only did 3 years ago, I printed it off and I would have it sitting next to me as I was revising. And as I did a topic, I would go, yep, I know that, comfortable with that particular topic. And I crossed it off the checklist. I would highly recommend that process because then you know what else you need to work on in order to cover the entirety of the syllabus. So please do check the specification. The second resource, as I've already explained, is your textbook. In there is everything that you need to know. It's got all of the knowledge that you'll be expected to understand in order to be successful and achieve this qualification. So that textbook is absolutely essential reading. I know you know that already. Thirdly, you've got the study guide. In the study guide is some very useful worked examples, both for short answer questions and also for tasting, work as well. It shows you how how marks will be awarded to the systematic approach to tasting in the exam, and it's got worked examples in there, so do have a look through that as well. And of course, yes, there are examples of short answer questions and worked examples in there as well. So these are resources that you already have. The online classroom, which is what I have developed over my years of working as a wine and spirits educator, also has a huge number of resources in it as well. Firstly, there's the assignments. The assignments are loosely based on, well, not loosely, closely based on short answer questions. Okay, so I would highly recommend both wines and spirits candidates completing those assignments and returning them to me for feedback if you want to. Those, as I said, those assignments are closely based on the sorts of things that might come up in exams, and it's good for you to start practicing those right from the beginning. Secondly, the examination section will clarify everything that I've said today about the exam and exactly how the exam works. So do review that particular section as well. There's also some information there about applying for a reasonable adjustment or a special consideration should you need to. But do consult that particular section of the online classroom for more information on that. The theory toolkit is in the online classroom, and this is what I'm going to focus on in just a minute. So I'll come back to the theory toolkit in just a minute. And also the mock theory examination is in there as well. Okay. We will talk about that again in just a minute as well. There's also a load of other stuff in there, and we will focus on some more of those resources in future meetups. Okay. Finally, I am hopefully a valuable resource for you as well. And if you want to set up a meeting with me at any time to go through anything, then do so. Obviously, all of the knowledge that you need is in your textbook. You don't really need me to sit here and lecture to you on any of those particular aspects because it's all clearly laid out in the book. However, I'm more than happy to go through things that you might be struggling to understand, or if there's anything particularly relating to the exam that you need a little bit of help with. So do get in touch and set up a meeting to go through that with me. Okay. Right, so the purpose of today's session is to introduce you to this new resource that I've just created called the Theory Toolkit. Okay, the first document, which I've already sent round to you, I think, in an email. Some of you might not have received this, particularly if you've only just enrolled on the course, though. But it is now posted permanently in your online classroom. So go there and have a look at it if it's not something you're aware of already. But I wrote a document called Understanding Command Verbs. So the examiner's report, every year I get a copy of a report written by the examiners, which highlights the issues that candidates have with respect to the level 3 qualification. And every year they say that the biggest issue that candidates have is with the short answer questions. Okay, not the tasting. I know students stress themselves about the tasting. It's not the tasting that gives most students the trouble. It is these short answer questions. And so I have created this resource to try and make it a little bit clearer and to try and help students prepare better for dealing with these short answer questions. One of the things that the WSET explained in the last examiner's report, that the global pass rate for level 3 is 51%. That's not great. That is frustratingly low. And the reason for this is, as I said, these short answer questions. Usually the multiple choice questions is quite straightforward, but it's the short answer questions. And to be honest with you, I would suggest that is the issue as well. I don't mark the papers. I always have a quick look through students' short answer questions just to kind of get a feel for how they might have been getting on. And I can see quite clearly in some people's papers that they're just not writing enough information in order to get anywhere with those short answer questions. The reasons why I think students struggle with these short answer questions is firstly a lack of knowledge. Okay, so WSET level 3 qualifications require the candidate to have a huge amount of knowledge. Okay, not as much as level 4, not as much as Master of Wine, but a huge level of knowledge. That textbook that you've got is that thick, it's full of information, most of which you're expected to know for the examination. So it comes down to firstly a lack of knowledge and a lack of having done the proper preparation and revision with respect to what is the content of that particular textbook. Secondly, there's a second reason. Secondly, it's a candidate's inability to apply that knowledge in order to be able to answer the questions that are being asked in the textbook. What students sometimes, I think, fail to understand is that you need to refer to multiple sections of the textbook in order to answer a particular question. So, for example, I know for a fact that when you get to the Bordeaux section, actually, let's talk about the California section, right? So, and this is the wine paper I'm using particularly for an example. So, a candidate opens the California chapter expecting to be told how a Bordeaux blend wine in Napa Valley is made. It doesn't do that. It doesn't do that at all. What it does say is that Napa Valley is well known for making premium styles of Bordeaux, premium wines in the classic Bordeaux style. Right. Okay. So you need to say to yourself, right, okay, what is the classic Bordeaux style? So then you need to go back to the Bordeaux section and you need to look through that to understand what grape varieties, therefore, they might be growing in Napa Valley. And then you'll need to go back to the winemaking section in order to understand how premium red wines might be made. Okay. So that is what we call applying the knowledge. So, you know, one thing, the textbook explains that Napa Valley makes Bordeaux style wines, premium quality Bordeaux style wines. But as a level 3 candidate now, you need to understand what a Bordeaux style wine is, and you need to understand how that is likely to be made. So you will probably need to refer to the Bordeaux chapter and the winemaking chapter in order to get clarification on that particular aspect. Same goes for spirits as well. So they might say, for example, with tequila, they might talk about the sugary liquid is made by doing this, doing that, but you will need to refer back to the original production chapter in order to get the real detail on the extraction process. Okay, so it's about applying knowledge rather than just being able to recall it, which is what level 2 is all about. Thirdly, the third reason why students might struggle to pass a level 3 qualification is poor exam technique. You might have all of this knowledge in your head. You might be able to do all of that application, but then when it comes to actually presenting the examiner with the evidence that you know this and you can apply that, that is where you let yourself down a little bit. Okay, poor exam technique. And what level 3 also requires, and what sometimes students don't fully understand, is that level 3 also requires students to demonstrate communication skills, the communication of being able to describe and to be able to explain various concepts from the level 3 award in wines and level 3 award in spirits. Okay. And this is where my understanding command verbs document is intended to help. Okay, because it will help you with examination technique. And the WSET have made it quite clear that this is how they want students to approach the short answer question paper. Okay, firstly, the first style of question that you'll get in the short answer question paper are questions that will simply ask you to state, name, identify, or list. And this could be grape varieties, it could be raw materials, it could be parts from the still, for example. It could be, what might it be? The regulations for requirements for the production of bourbon, for example. It will simply require you to state, name, identify, or list certain concepts or themes from the content. Fairly straightforward. These are usually worth 1 mark, maybe 2 marks, 5 marks, perhaps, depending on which paper you are sitting. So be prepared to answer those. The typical ones that I see all the time are grape varieties. List the 3 grape varieties that are used to make Chateauneuf de Pape. Okay, it might be list 5 regulations that are required in order to produce bourbon. List 4 types of heating that might be used to heat the still, to heat the pot in a typical pot still setup. Okay, so that's the sort of thing that you will be asked. State, name, identify, list. Simple factual recall that you'll be required to do. Make sure when you're asked for 5, you list 5. If you list 3, you can only be given 3 marks. If you only list 1, you can only be given 1 mark, provided you are right, of course. Okay, so make sure that you've read the question properly and you list exactly the number that you are required to list as well. Okay, the second type of question that you'll get in the level 3 exam is one that asks you to describe something. Okay, so it's asking you, it's testing your ability to describe something. Might help to give you some context. It might help to understand that level 3 is the gateway to becoming an educator, a level 2 educator. So you will need to be able to stand in front of a class and to describe fermentation to them. And this is what level 3 is testing your ability to do. Can you describe fermentation? Can you describe malolactic conversion? Can you describe reflux? Okay, so these are the sort of things that you will be tested on. It's asking you for a little bit more detail than those state, name, identify, lists questions were. And you will need to have studied the content in more detail, have a greater depth of knowledge in order to be able to answer these questions. To a degree, some of these questions can be learnt off by heart. The answers to some of these questions can be learnt off by heart. You can pre-prepare an answer to describe fermentation. You can pre-prepare an answer to describe how reflux works. Okay, so you can do that to some degree with some of those questions. The third type of question that you get is a little bit more involved, and you won't be able to learn these off by heart. You can pre-prepare them, absolutely, but they will be a little bit harder to commit to memory and to memorize. So these need your ability to be able to apply your knowledge and understanding and to effects that you might see happening. It's about being able to link cause and effect. Okay, you will therefore need to be able to use words like because, therefore, so, as a result. Okay, you are showing your understanding and you are accounting for certain aspects in wine. So, for example, the question might read, account for the buttery, creamy aromas that are found in some styles of Chardonnay. Okay, you will therefore need to explain how malolactic conversion works. You might be asked to account for the premium price on a 12-year-old Scotch whiskey compared to a single malt Scotch whiskey compared to a classic high volume inexpensive blend. Okay, you are being asked to explain why something is the way it is. Okay, not just what something is, but why something is the way that it is. Okay, and again, this is essential skills that you need as a level 3, as someone who has achieved level 3 as a wine or a spirits professional, in order to be able to help others understand, to be able to broaden their knowledge. Jobs that I definitely know, for example, that's something that you, Russell, do in the shops when you have whiskey tastings or spirits tastings. You'll need to be able to describe and explain certain concepts to your customers, to your guests that are coming to your tastings. The document Understanding Command Verbs explains this all in detail, and it gives examples as well as you are going through. Okay. List, state, name, identify. Oh, I've got some examples in here. So for example, a classic one that comes up: list 5 regulations of production or labeling terms for AOC Martinique rum. Okay. You might be asked, if you're doing the wine course, name the grape variety used to make Torazi DOCG. Okay, so basically this will require you to have studied both the Caribbean rum section, specifically with respect to rum from Martinique. It will also have required wine students to have focused on Italy, looking closely at some of those regions, and obviously this one is focused on Torazi. Okay, describe what happens during reflux might be a classic example. Describe the typical style of wine made in Rias Baixas. That's the sort of question that might come up with using that describe command verb. Okay. It requires you to need to understand what happens during reflux and be able to write that down on paper. It requires you to understand what Rias Baixas is, what grape variety they use, what style of wine that it typically makes. Okay. Explain how changing the angle of the line arm on a Scottish double pot still can affect the spirit. Okay, so you've got to firstly describe how changing the angle is going to going to affect reflux, and then you need to explain how that is going to have an impact on the style of the spirit that is being produced. So you've got to have those linking words in here: because, therefore, so, as a result. The same with this particular example here that a wine student might encounter. Explain why a Rioja Reserva 2018 might command a premium price. Again, you need to explain what that Rioja Reserva is, why it is the way it is, and then account for the fact that it has a more premium price to it. Okay. In the theory toolkit in the online classroom, I have prepared example short answer questions with worked examples in there for you. So I would highly recommend that you go through those example short answer questions. You've got examples in your study guides as well that the WSET have prepared for you, but I've done it in a slightly different way, in my own words, in that particular document as well. I have other examples which I intend to upload over the next few weeks, so you will have other examples to refer to as well. But for the time being, there's just one example in there, which is a classic one that I hope will help you understand exactly how to approach answering those short answer questions. Okay. You really do have to practice these. So I would highly recommend doing those assignments. also attempting the mock theory examination, which is in there as well. It's right at the end. The idea is that it's something that you approach towards the end of your studies when you're just a couple of weeks in advance of the exam. But it is in there in order to help you practice these short answer questions as well. Okay, so that's in there too to help you. Okay. One thing I was going to suggest, actually, just before we move on to this slide, maybe a helpful way for you to approach collating information, and I will write this up in a document, and I'll put this into the exam into the theory toolkit at some stage as well. But a handy way to collate information as you work your way through the chapters, the principal spirit or the principal wine producing region chapters, would be to collate the information that you are gathering into an Excel spreadsheet. This is absolutely the sort of thing that I find really helpful. I know everybody's studies a little bit different, but you could do it in a notebook under different headings as well if you would prefer. But I think that wine students, you might want to collect your information under the following headings: grape variety, climate and weather, soil and topography, winemaking, maturation, style, laws and labeling terms. And then you will be able to clearly be able to start making links between grape variety and the style of wine that is being made in any particular area, the climate and weather and the style of wine that is being made in any particular weather, soil and topography, and how that is impacting or affecting the style of wine that is being produced in any one particular area. You are almost preparing yourself for those explain questions by having cause in one column, grape variety, climate and weather, soil and topography, and so on and so forth. And then the effect, which is the wine style, at the end or at the beginning, however you prefer to do it. I'll put this all together in a document and send it to you, so I can appreciate it might be quite hard to visualize at this stage. Spirits students, your categories might be raw material that it's used, extraction technique, how that sugary liquid is created, fermentation, and any insights that you might have about how fermentation will differ from one spirits category to another, distillation, maturation, again, those laws and labeling terms, which are all important as well, and then style at the end. So again, you're looking at the causes: raw material, extraction, fermentation, distillation, and the effect, which is spirit style. At the very end, you'll start making those links between those causes and effects, which will help you with those explain questions that you're going to come across in the exam. Okay, as I was just about to say, with this particular slide here, if you want to go through anything at any stage, just ask. Okay, just you've all got access to my calendar, so you can book yourself a session using that if you like, or send me an email or a WhatsApp and we'll get something set up at another time. I'm more than happy to sit and go through things with you at any time in order to help clarify things. So just ask and make the most of me in advance of the exam. Any questions, Russell or Claire?
Not for me so far, no.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
none for me either, thanks.
Okay. Hopefully that's made a little bit of sense, and it'll be a little bit clearer how to approach the short answer questions. There is a lot more information in that those two documents that I've put into the theory toolkit, and as I say, I will be uploading more information which I hope will help you, but the understanding command verbs, the example short answer question, that you've got in there as well will help you, will help clarify what you need to do. Again, also the specification, it's not in the theory toolkit, but it is pinned to your notice boards, so you should have easy access to that specification. They're the most important documents to review at this stage. I've actually put an example. So in the understanding command verbs document, there is a short answer question at the end. The idea is that you have a go at that and you send it to me for feedback. Of course, if you've only just started doing the course like you have, Claire, then you might not actually have the knowledge to be able to approach that particular question just yet. So you might want to leave it for a bit, but bear in mind that it is there ready for you to do at some stage. When you want to. Russell, you might be able to approach it as you've been doing this for a little bit longer. I know that some of your studies have been interrupted, but have a look at it anyway and see, because it will give you an idea of the sorts of questions that might come up in the exam anyway. Okay. So there is also another folder in your online classroom called the Tasting Toolkit. And this it still needs a bit of work from me. There's still some little bits and pieces that I need to do to it, but that is going to be the subject of my next session, the next meetup session that I'm going to be having. So it will all be properly in place and be ready to examine in our next session. And I'll let you know. That'll be in probably in about 3 weeks' time that I get that all organized, and I'll get the session together for then. Okay, that just about covers everything that I intended to say this afternoon.
Well, that's really helpful.
Any?
I think from my point of view, I'm not sure how you feel, Claire, but it's just about staying calm and staying structured and just not take a breath. I mean, I think it says that in there, just take a breath, look at the question, read the question again, formulate an answer in your head, and then just slowly start to work your way through it.
Yeah, absolutely, in a logical order as well. That is something else that they're looking for. Of course, there is some flexibility. The examiner does have some flexibility, and if you've talked about, I know, maturation before you have done extraction, they'll go, yeah, all right, okay. I understand that they've done a bit of a mind dump here. And they will understand that. But yes, a nice logical order helps as well. And the best way to be able to achieve what you've just said, Russell, about staying calm and being able to approach it calmly is to do the preparation beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, bear in mind that the total number of learning hours for the level 3 qualification is 84 hours, right? And that actually is only 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So you could work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 on this course and know everything you need to know and be fully prepared in 2 weeks. You've got way more time than that between now and the actual exam in November itself. So yes, it'll take a little bit of planning, and as you said earlier, Russell, discipline in order to try and fit everything in around all of everything else that's going on in your lives. But it can be done. You've got loads of time.
Yeah, it's useful to remember that, actually. That we probably actually have done a good part of that 80 hours already.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Sometimes think you're not spending enough time on it, but
yeah, exactly. You probably are. You've probably done already is all of the knowledge gathering, but perhaps now it's time to move on to some of that sort of working on the skills, the communication skills, such as the describing and the explaining.
Yeah.
The application of that knowledge.
Fabulous.
Okay, lovely. Claire, how do you feel about all of that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think I think it's just trying to get into the mindset of what the short answer questions require. And that, I think, as you say, I'll probably just take a bit of practice. But yeah, I think everything you said has been really helpful and definitely makes sense. So thank you.
Okay, yeah, all right, no problem, no problem at all. Just know that I'm here for continued support. So if you need to set up a session at any time, I'm very happy to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Lovely. All right, okay. So what have you got in the fridge tonight, Claire? Anything?
Nothing actually. I was out Friday and Saturday night, so I I think I'm going to abstain for a couple of nights, and then I'm on call tomorrow night anyway. So yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Fair enough. How about you, Russell? Are you going to be having a dram later this evening?
Well, we weren't going to, but I think there may be a Sauvignon Blanc in the fridge, so maybe we'll have to. It's quite warm here, so it may go down well.
Okay. All right. Good. Brilliant. Lovely. This is kind of what I think, you know, sometimes it's easy to forget when you're studying, doesn't it? And you get a bit bogged down in all of the, how do I pass the examination and how do I do this and how do I do that? But what it is, it's all about that liquid that's sitting in our fridge right now that gives us such an opportunity for joy and, you know, vast range of taste, aroma, textural experiences, and as I say, the joy that comes from that is what it's all about, really. So don't lose sight of that. Remember, all of that will help too. Okay, lovely.
Thank you.
Keep in touch. And any questions, you know where I am.
Okay, thanks, Claire.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Right.